You do not need to raise your voice to prove you are strong. A truly steady mind does not seek recognition through loud words, but impresses through a calm presence. Try observing. In a room full of people arguing, everyone wants to win. Yet the one who maintains serene silence is often the person the whole crowd pays attention to. So it is with today's world. Everywhere, people erupt easily, get angry easily, and give up easily when faced with difficulty. But the one who can remain calm, rational, and disciplined amid chaos is the truly formidable one. Not because they strike first, but because almost nothing can bring them down. This is precisely what the philosophy of Stoicism seeks to teach. Stoicism is not a theory divorced from reality, abandoned in dusty library books. It was applied by generals on the battlefield, practiced by Emperor Marcus Aurelius in the midst of crisis, and relied upon by ordinary people when facing grief, loss, and injustice. And from all those experiences, Stoicism teaches a simple yet profound truth. You cannot control the world, but you can control yourself. When you can do that, your mind becomes an impregnable fortress. In this video, you will discover 7 Stoic principles for building a mind that is not only strong, but quietly instills respect in others, because everyone recognizes that you are not someone who easily collapses. Principle 1. Self-control. Have you noticed that the one most easily provoked is also the one most easily controlled? A disdainful glance, a mocking remark, or even a single comment online can be enough to make them lose their composure. They think they are resisting, but in truth, they have just handed over the keys of their mind to someone else. Anger is not proof of strength. It is the clearest sign of weakness. The Stoics pointed this out long ago. Seneca wrote in Letters to Lucilius, "The strongest person is the one who has control over himself." This statement completely overturns our view of power. In reality, you cannot control others, nor can you control circumstances. The only thing you can and must control is yourself. Imagine the mind as a fortress. If its gates are always open, anyone can walk in and sow chaos. But if the gates are guarded, enemies grow weary before they can break through. Self-control is that gatekeeper. Marcus Aurelius once faced betrayal within his own court. He could have erupted in anger, punished immediately, and asserted his authority before everyone. But Aurelius understood that rage only revealed he had been drawn into his opponent's game. Instead of reacting, he observed. Instead of exploding, he stayed silent. In that calmness, he retained for himself the power of the final decision. That is true power, the kind that cannot be stolen by provocation. You see this difference in everyday life as well. An employee is unjustly scolded by the boss in front of colleagues. The first reacts immediately, arguing in anger, only to make themselves appear weaker. The second remains silent, not out of cowardice, but out of the wisdom that anger has never been a good advisor. They choose a more suitable time to have a frank conversation later. The result? The first is seen as hot-headed, while the second is respected as calm and reliable. True strength does not lie in the ability to strike back instantly, but in the refusal to respond in the way others expect. When you control yourself, you become the master of the situation. When you lose control, you become its puppet. And that difference determines who earns respect and who is disregarded. Want to start practicing? Try a simple habit. The next time you feel anger rising, don't respond immediately. Pause and take a deep breath. Hold silence for 3 breaths. In that brief moment, you will realize you have a choice not to let the situation control you, but to choose to respond with reason. Those 3 breaths are the fine line between the impulsive and the wise. Because if you cannot control yourself, all other principles are only theory. And if self-control is the first brick, then the second brick is discipline, the force that keeps you moving forward when emotions fade. That will be the next principle we explore. Principle 2. Discipline over motivation. People often speak of motivation as the key that unlocks the door to success. Search around and you will find countless calls to find your motivation or nurture your inspiration. But there is an uncomfortable truth few want to admit. Motivation is unreliable. It is like the wind, it may blow in suddenly, but it can also vanish at the very moment you need it most. If your entire life's journey depends on the wind, then a single windless day will leave your ship stranded. Discipline, however, is different. Discipline is the oar. It does not depend on the wind, nor on favorable conditions from outside. It simply requires that you place your hands upon it and row day after day. Epictetus once said, "No man becomes great by chance. Discipline is the price of greatness." It is a simple but harsh truth. There are no shortcuts, only steady steps. Look around you. Those who start with motivation often begin with great intensity. They buy all the equipment, craft detailed plans, and even boast of their determination. But a few weeks later, when the excitement fades, they disappear. By contrast, there are others who speak little, who show no grandeur. They simply act quietly, consistently, a little every day regardless of mood. And it is precisely this steadiness that turns into visible results after months, even years. Motivation can get you started, but only discipline will carry you to the finish line. The Stoics understood that emotions are fragile, but discipline endures. They did not wait for inspiration to act. They built habits so that action came regardless of feeling. Like Roman soldiers who did not wait for a good mood to pick up their swords. They trained daily, not because it was pleasant, but because they knew the day of survival would come, and today's discipline was the guarantee of tomorrow. In ordinary life, you see this contrast in any field. The person who trains at the gym out of motivation might lift heavy weights in the first week, but easily quits when fatigue sets in. The one who trains with discipline may start light, but maintains consistency, and after a few years, their body is a living testament to persistence. If you wish to cultivate discipline, do not begin with something too grand. Choose a small action you can repeat daily. Read one page, walk 10 minutes, write a few lines in a journal. What matters is not the volume, but the consistency. Each time you keep your discipline, you strengthen your belief in yourself. I am the one who keeps promises to myself. And from that belief, strength is built. Discipline is the foundation of freedom, because when you have discipline, you are no longer hostage to fleeting inspiration. You know you will do what must be done, regardless of mood. And when the world looks at you, they recognize someone formidable, not because of sudden bursts, but because you cannot be easily shaken. Yet there is another truth. Discipline will collapse without one essential element: responsibility. If you are not willing to take full responsibility for your actions, discipline is nothing but an empty shell. And that is the very principle we must explore next. Principle 3. Taking full responsibility. When something bad happens, people's first reaction is often to find excuses. It's the circumstances, it's other people, it's unfair fate. Blame provides short-term comfort because it helps us avoid the feeling of helplessness. But in reality, every time we place blame, we also hand away a portion of our own power. For if the cause lies outside, then the solution too lies beyond our reach, and we become permanent victims of life. The Stoics refused to live that way. They believed true freedom only comes when you take full responsibility for your life. Seneca once wrote, "The strong person does not ask why this happened to me, but rather, what will I do with it?" That question marks the shift from victim to master. It places control back into your hands. Imagine a general who has lost a battle. He could blame his soldiers for lacking discipline, the harsh weather, or luck favoring the enemy, but such excuses only erode his credibility further. On the other hand, if he stands before his troops, admits his mistakes, and promises to learn and improve, what happens? He does not lose authority, he gains trust. Because his soldiers see a man courageous enough to accept responsibility. The same is true in daily life. A startup team that fails might blame a tough market or unfair investors. But founders who dare to say, "We miscalculated, and here's how we will do things differently," are the ones who stand the chance to rise stronger. Responsibility opens the door to change, while blame locks you inside failure. The Stoics treated every hardship as an opportunity to practice responsibility. When you lose a job, instead of asking, "Why did the company treat me this way?" ask, "What can I learn from this experience?" When a relationship falls apart, instead of blaming the other, ask yourself, "What can I change in how I live and how I love?" In this way, you not only endure difficulties, you grow stronger because of them. Start with a simple exercise. Each day, when something goes wrong, write down one thing you could do differently to improve the situation. This is not about merciless self-blame, but about claiming the part you can act upon. When you practice this, you will gradually realize that responsibility is not a burden, but a doorway to freedom. Taking full responsibility does not mean taking all the blame upon yourself. It means refusing to let life make decisions for you. You cannot change the world, but you can change how you walk through it. And that is what makes you unshakable. But to go further, responsibility alone is not enough. You need a different attitude toward failure, not to see it as an enemy, but as a map that guides the way. And that is the next principle we will explore. Principle 4. Failure is a map. We grow up in a society obsessed with success. From the classroom, we are taught that low grades are shameful, failure at work is a stain, and stumbling in personal life is a sign of weakness. It is no wonder that many grow up carrying a fear of failure, so much so that they would rather do nothing than try and fall short. But here lies the paradox. It is this very fear that traps them in true failure. The Stoics saw failure differently. They did not view it as a sentence, but as a map. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle is the way." This phrase turns our perspective upside down. What blocks our path is not there to destroy us, but to show us the road we must travel to become stronger. Think of Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. When asked if he was discouraged, he replied, "I have not failed, I've just found thousands of ways that won't work." To Edison, failure was not a dead end, but markers on the map leading to success. If he had feared failure, like most of us do, the world might still be shrouded in darkness. In everyday life, we see the same. A student who fails an exam may see it as humiliation and drop out. Yet another may see that failure as a reminder to change study habits, shift attitude, or even adjust their entire path. The result? Failure does not bury them, it leads them to a road better suited for their journey. Through the Stoic lens, failure is not an enemy, but a stern teacher. It strips away complacency, forcing us to confront our limitations, and it is precisely this confrontation that matures us. Seneca once wrote that no one learns endurance from an easy life. Like a sword, without fire and hammering, it remains only a useless lump of metal. Want to turn failure into a map? Try this exercise. Each time you stumble, instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What path is this failure pointing me toward?" Write down at least 3 lessons drawn from each failure and treat it as an ever-updating map. Over time, you will find that failure no longer terrifies you, but becomes an essential part of the journey. The Stoics did not avoid failure, they welcomed it as a trainer. For only after stumbling and rising again can you know how firmly you can stand. And only by accepting failure as a natural part of the path do you move closer to being unshakable. But there is one more truth. You cannot go far if you are not honest with yourself. Failure becomes meaningless if you constantly break promises to yourself, and that is the next principle we must explore. Principle 5. Keep promises to yourself. There is something strange. We often strive to keep promises to others, yet easily break promises to ourselves. You promise friends you will arrive on time, and you try your best not to be late. You promise colleagues you will finish the job, and you stay up late to get it done. But when you promise yourself to wake up early, exercise, read, or start a personal project, it is easy to tell yourself, "Tomorrow is fine." The problem is not that you miss a workout or a page of reading. The problem is that every time you break a promise to yourself, you quietly erode your own self-trust. And when that trust is gone, you no longer believe in your ability to change. You no longer believe you have what it takes to do what you want. Others may forgive you when you break promises, but you yourself cannot forget. The Stoics regarded keeping promises to oneself as a moral principle. Living in accordance with your reason and your own principles is the foundation of dignity. A Stoic philosopher kept a daily journal for many years, not to boast, but because it was a promise he had set for himself. Each day he must examine his soul. In everyday life, this is plain to see. Someone starts going to the gym with friends. At first, they are enthusiastic, promising to maintain it for at least 3 months. Yet only a few weeks later, they quit. Why? No one forces them, and no one punishes them. But after breaking promises to themselves many times, they lose the belief that they can persist at anything. Meanwhile, another person chooses a small goal, just 10 push-ups each morning. They do it every day, no matter how busy or tired. After a year, that small habit becomes a solid foundation, and they can expand to larger goals. The difference lies in keeping promises. Epictetus reminded his students, "Before you preach to others, live in accordance with what you preach." He meant that promises do not begin on the outside, but with inner honesty. For if you do not keep promises to yourself, promises to others are only an empty shell. Want to train this? Start very small. Do not promise to change your entire life in a week. Choose one thing you are certain you can do. Read 1 page each night. Drink a glass of water upon waking. Write 1 sentence in your notebook, and then do it every day. After a month, you will feel the difference, not in the result of the action itself, but in the belief that you can trust yourself. And that belief is a strength no one can take away. Keeping promises to yourself is not harsh discipline. It is how you prove to yourself that you are worthy of trust. And when others look at you, they will sense that steadiness without boasting, without noise. But to nourish that steadiness, you need another important condition. Not only acting, but also learning to sit still in silence. If you cannot find peace within, you will always be swept away by the noise outside. And that is the next principle. Principle 6. Practicing stillness. We are living in an age of noise, not only the sounds of the street, but also the noise of information, of social media, of endless worries piling up. Each day, thousands of messages compete for your attention. In such a world, stillness has become almost a luxury. Yet, it is precisely stillness that provides the richest soil for inner strength to grow. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that one who cannot sit still with themselves cannot master the world outside. A Stoic maxim once said, "He who does not command silence does not command speech." For if you are obsessed with constant reaction, with constant busyness, then your mind is like a house without doors. Anyone can walk in, anyone can disturb it. Marcus Aurelius, amid the weight of imperial duties, kept the habit of writing in his journal each morning. This was not a luxury, but a necessity. In those quiet pages, he conversed with himself, cleansing away the chaos from outside, preparing his mind for a day of challenges. It was stillness that kept him from being overwhelmed by the heavy responsibilities of an empire. Think back to the last time you truly sat in silence, no phone, no music, no conversation. Perhaps it has been a long time, and perhaps you felt uncomfortable within the first few minutes. Yet that discomfort is the clearest sign that you need stillness more than ever. For only in stillness can you hear the true voice within, the one drowned out by the noise outside. In everyday life, stillness can be as simple as pausing in the middle of a busy day, taking a deep breath, and observing your stream of thoughts. It can be 10 minutes in the morning before the world awakens, or a few minutes at night when everything has settled. What matters is not the length of time, but that you allow yourself to sit in quiet, with no need to do anything at all. Want to practice? Try this simple exercise. Each day, spend at least 10 minutes sitting in silence, no devices, no distractions. Simply observe your breathing. When thoughts pull you away, gently bring your mind back to the present. At first, it will feel difficult, but gradually, that stillness will become a familiar space, a refuge you can return to whenever balance is needed. The Stoics did not seek stillness as an escape, but as preparation. They knew the outer world was full of chaos, and only a mind trained in stillness is strong enough to face it. Like a warrior who, before battle, must pause for a deep breath, not to avoid the fight, but to enter it with clarity. But there is a deeper dimension. Stillness not only helps you stay balanced amid chaos, it also teaches you to face the hardest truth of all sorrow, and that is the final principle and also the greatest challenge. Principle 7. Do not run from sorrow. Among all the emotions people try to avoid, sorrow likely stands first. We fear it like a shadow that might swallow us whole. When sad, many try to fill the void with noise, shopping, eating, social media, as if staying busy enough would make sorrow disappear. The irony is this: the more we run, the more tightly sorrow clings. It turns into a slow burn, gnawing from within, weakening us day by day. The Stoics did not see sorrow as an enemy. They regarded it as an inevitable part of life. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Remember that you are only human and that loss and suffering are natural." For them, accepting sorrow is not surrender, it is the first step toward transforming it. Consider the story of someone who has lost a loved one. That pain cannot be erased, but there are two ways to respond. The first person tries to ignore it, burying themselves in work, pretending to be strong. Yet deep down, the sorrow never goes away, and it leaves them numb even to joy. The second chooses to face it, allowing themselves to cry, allowing themselves to hurt, then gradually learning to remember their loved one with gratitude instead of despair. They do not escape sorrow, they live with it and become more profound because of it. Epictetus emphasized, "It is not events that distress us, but our view of them. From the Stoic perspective, sorrow is not fate's punishment. It is a lesson in life's fragility, a reminder to cherish what we have. Instead of asking, "Why me?" the Stoic asks, "What is this here to teach me?" In modern life, when facing failure, loss, or loneliness, instead of rushing to cover it up, you can try stopping for a moment. Sit down and write out what you truly feel. Do not judge, simply acknowledge. Then ask yourself, what have I learned from this experience? Perhaps the lesson is patience, gratitude, or simply the realization that you are stronger than you thought. Sorrow, when accepted, becomes fertile ground for growth. It teaches humility, teaches empathy, and teaches that happiness does not come from avoiding suffering, but from living fully with it. Those who have passed through deep sorrow often radiate a special calm, for they have been tempered in the fire of loss. Remember, running from sorrow only makes you weaker, while facing it makes you unassailable. For if you do not fear even sorrow, what in this world could subdue you? And once you have learned to control yourself, cultivate discipline, assume responsibility, treat failure as a map, keep promises to yourself, practice stillness, and not run from sorrow, you have built for yourself 7 strong layers of a fortress. That is also the moment to look back over the whole journey and discover why an impregnable mind compels others not to take you lightly. When the mind becomes a fortress. In the eyes of many, strength is measured by the ability to overpower others. They believe that the loudest, the quickest to react, the most aggressive, these are the strong. But observe closely. Those who are quick to anger, quick to be provoked, quick to lose control, are, in truth, the most easily manipulated. They think they inspire fear, but deep down, they only expose their own insecurity. The Stoics saw differently. To them, the most formidable person is not the one who wins every argument, but the one who does not need to argue. Not the one who constantly proves themselves with noise, but the one who remains calm in silence. For that calmness unsettles others, it mirrors the unrest within them. Think of the people you truly admire. Are they the ones who boast, who impose, who demand attention? Or are they the ones who, even in storms, remain steady? A true leader does not need to prove strength. Their presence alone is enough for others to sense it. That is the strength Stoicism seeks to give you, a quiet, enduring, unshakable strength. We have walked together through 7 principles. Self-control. Do not let circumstances decide who you are. Discipline over motivation. Act on principles, not on feelings. Full responsibility. Return power to yourself by owning your life. Failure as a map. Turn setbacks into signposts to go further. Keep promises to yourself. Build unshakable trust in yourself. Practicing stillness. Create space for the mind to recover and rule. Do not run from sorrow. Let suffering become soil for inner strength. These 7 principles are like 7 layers of walls. As you build each one, your mind becomes a fortress. Others may hurl criticism, set traps of provocation, scatter chaos, but all of it stops at the gates. They cannot break you, for you no longer depend on anything but yourself. And here lies the essential truth. When you are no longer easily subdued, others will not dare to belittle you. Not because you demand respect with force, but because your steadiness compels them to see you differently. An impregnable mind reflects the unrest of others, and for that reason, it makes them tread carefully. Remember, this strength does not come overnight. It is not the result of a rousing speech or a burst of passion. It is built little by little, Each time you choose control over outbursts, discipline over indulgence, responsibility over blame. It is the fruit of hundreds, thousands of small choices accumulated into an unyielding wall. And you can begin today. No need to wait for a grand crisis, no need to wait for the right moment. Choose one principle from these 7 and practice it now. Perhaps it is pausing for 3 breaths before reacting. Perhaps it is keeping one small daily habit. Perhaps it is 10 minutes of stillness each morning. These small steps are the foundation of great strength. When you begin to live this way, you will notice a change. You no longer need to prove anything to the world. You do not need to shout to be heard, nor show off to be recognized. Your calmness will speak for itself. And that is when you understand the final truth. When your mind is impregnable, contempt dissolves on its own.